Socialist Kshama Sawant is back, and this time she's running for Congress. Let's talk about it in our segment, Unbelievable. Oh, God, I just hate that now we're going to have to talk about Kshama Sawant. And yes, we have to. And look, good content. Who am I kidding? It's good content, right? So, of course, if you're not familiar, Kshama Sawant served 3 terms on the Seattle City Council as a socialist. She represented District 3 in Seattle, which is Capitol Hill, the most far-left district. She was the subject of a recall. So even at the end of her time in Seattle, she was wearing on even the leftiest of the leftists, because she clearly, and one of the routine criticisms of her was she cared more about the National Socialist movement and more about building her own personal brand than she did actually serving the needs of her constituents on Capitol Hill. I mean, for instance, during we're now at the 5-year anniversary of Chaz Chop. She was very supportive of that, very supportive of taking over 6 square blocks. Wasn't responsive at all to businesses and to residents who were concerned about their safety and concerned about how it hindered a police response during that period of time. She was always talking about her national socialist talking points. Wouldn't show up at community meetings, didn't care about really the mundane parts of being a Seattle City Council member. So now she wants to run for Congress. She announced her campaign in the 9th Congressional District, which is a seat currently held by a friend of the show, Congressman Adam Smith, who is a more reasonable Democrat, or as she calls him, warmongering Democratic Congressman Adam Smith. She said, "Today I announced my working class, anti-war, anti-genocide campaign for U.S. Congress. Our demands: end the genocide in Gaza, free health care for all, tax the rich, and we need rent control, make corporate landlords pay." Ah, yes, because rent control is such a grand idea. She said, "We need to build the strongest anti-war, anti-genocide campaign in the country and fight and defeat the rich." Okay, what are you defeating the rich over? Like, what does defeat of the rich look like? The warmongers and both their parties. "During my 10 years as the socialist on the Seattle City Council, we won historic victories. The first $15 an hour minimum wage in any major city, the Amazon tax, which at first was repealed and then proved to be an utter failure. And then she says historic renters' rights, which we now have a worse housing and rental affordability crisis than we've ever had before, in part because of some of those historic things she fought for." Anyway, you guys know she's absolutely batshit, right? So our friend Jonathan Cho, God bless Jonathan Cho, he shows up at her campaign kickoff to ask questions, and some very legitimate questions. Nicole, can I flip the order? So I want to do the second one first on anti-Semitism on college campuses. So clearly she is crafting her campaign around Gaza, and pro-Palestine and end the war and all of these things. And so Sawant had asked her a question about the rampant anti-Semitism that we are seeing on college campuses. And given that this is the primary message in her campaign, what she would do to protect Jewish students who might feel unsafe.
What are you going to do to keep Jewish students safe on college campuses in America who feel like your message targeting Israel is anti-Semitic and also puts a target on their backs?
I think this question has, is this question that was just asked at this moment, it is only being kept on life support in very far right media. The truth is that the anger against the genocide internationally has been so fierce that even heads of state, like the leaders in Germany and Canada and in country after country, even though they have not stopped funding Israel, they're still doing it, but there is so much pressure on them that purely out of personal political career preservation or future proofing, as a journalist from The Intercept correctly said, purely out of personal interest, career interest, they're being forced to say Israel is going too far, this needs to stop, and this is a genocide. But the far right commentators like this one, they will continue parroting this line, which is completely out of touch with ordinary people. Anti-Semitism is a real scourge, as is Islamophobia. We have to fight against both. There is no room for any kind of hate and bigotry in a decent society. And those who are fighting against the genocide are also fighting against anti-Semitism.
That's right.
And what we need to do is continue to unite people across ethnicity to fight the genocide, because guess what? The vast majority of American working people want this genocide to end.
Word soup. But also, if you really believe there's no place for anti-Semitism, why didn't you just answer his question? Why did you attack him rather than answering what is a legitimate question, where what are you going to do as a member of Congress to make sure that Jewish students feel safe on campus? And this comes, of course, just a couple days after. So you had the Elias Rodriguez, who shot in cold blood 2 people outside a Jewish embassy event in D.C. Super UW, which is the anti-Semitic group that was technically disbanded at the University of Washington. Look what just a few hours ago they posted on their social media accounts. Courage is contagious. For Gaza from Elias. Free Elias Rodriguez. Build the international popular cradle of resistance. This is somebody who killed 2 people in cold blood. And you have students at the University of Washington right now who are calling him courageous, who are calling for his release. And Kshama Sawant wants to dodge a question about what are you going to do to keep Jewish students safe. This group and these people are capable of committing murder. They're capable of murdering students who are Jewish or who they even perceive as being Jewish. We've talked about that many times. They engage in the same sort of hateful rhetoric that Elias Rodriguez did before he committed those homicides. And so Kshama Sawant is someone, through her rhetoric, who has emboldened people like them to engage in violent behavior. And when given a chance, she won't say what she's going to do to speak up for Jewish students. And just in case it wasn't clear, Jonathan Cho also asked her directly about Hamas.
Ms. Sawant, do you believe Hamas is a terror group, or do you believe they're made up of freedom fighters? Can you just answer whether or not you believe Hamas is a terror group or made up of freedom fighters?
Anybody else, we're gonna wrap up.
Okay.
Can't even be bothered to answer the question. Is Hamas a terror organization? Anyone else? Not answering questions from him. Is Hamas a terror organization? So she wants to say that, oh yeah, anti-Semitism is bad. Wink, wink. Anti-Semitism is bad. Wink, wink. Absolutely insane. And I think it's very important. You know, I have a subscriber poll we'll get to coming up in a moment. I asked you guys about her chances, and my initial response is she doesn't have a chance in the world. You know, she was already sort of falling out of favor with even the furthest to the left progressives in Seattle's bluest district. You know, the 9th encompasses some areas in the suburbs of Seattle that aren't as blue. Now, look, maybe I am naive in saying that, but this is going to be an important race for Republicans. And I'll tell you right now, there's no Republican who's going to win in the 9th. So I'm sure that some Republican will run a campaign for the 9th congressional district, but the campaign will be DOA. You're not going to win in the 9th congressional district in the suburbs of Seattle. You're just not. So it's going to be very important for moderates and for Republicans to be able to check a box for a Democrat, fill in a box. You're going to have to vote for Adam Smith. And I know some of you don't love him. I mean, he's been on this show. We disagree on certain things, but I think he's been very good at calling out anti-Semitism. He was even had his personal home vandalized because of it. And, you know, he's been good, I think, we had him on our ICE documentary. I think he's been good at sort of having a nuanced opinion on some of the immigration issues this country is dealing with. This is one of what will be many examples. When there are 2 candidates you don't particularly like, you're going to still have to vote for the less crazy of the 2, even if it means filling in a circle for a Democrat. And if we find out that this race is going to be close, hell, I would not rule out going out there personally to campaign for Congressman Smith. As much as that might piss people off, if this turns into something where she's gaining traction, I absolutely would not rule out personally going and knocking on doors of Republican voters in that district to make sure that they're filling out their ballot for Congressman Smith. And in Washington state, which is such a blue state, you're going to have more and more of these races where the Republican, look, they're present in the race, but they don't have a chance. And they're going to be D on D races. Oh, this is a D on a socialist race, but you know, D on D races. And you're just going to have to suck it up, and you're going to have to be informed, and you're going to have to vote for one of the Democrats. So anyway, and I knew she was up to something. Can we just say that quickly? I knew she was up to something. She quits her job in the Seattle City Council, and then she says she's going to go and try to grow the National Socialist movement. And she's showing up at protests in D.C. and in Chicago and all of this. And that kind of didn't work out for her. Like, no one was paying attention to what she was doing. But lately, she's been showing up at Seattle City Council meetings like a washed up, a has-been, trying to, again, interrupt the meetings with her weird little cult group of people with their red signs. And I thought, what is she doing back in Seattle, in the Seattle City Council? Did she give up on her national ambitions that quickly? But she was trying to get her name back in the news so she could launch this, pro-Hamas campaign for Congress. So God help us all, although great content for the Undivided podcast. All right, we're going to continue talking about anti-Semitism and the media's horrific, once again, coverage of the terror attack in Boulder, and also an interesting raid that happened here in Washington State. First, if you are thinking about selling your home, reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com. I'll tell you, when we didn't have a show Monday and Tuesday, I was in Idaho. I can see why so many people are moving to Idaho. Went across the border, got gas for $3.20 a gallon, and all the streets were just pristine, and there wasn't trash and homeless people anywhere. So if you're thinking about moving to a place like Idaho, I mean, that's sad. I don't want you to.
Or Texas.
Was it nice?
Oh my gosh. And I
too
drove a
hot.
rental car around for probably 5 hours total. It cost me $13 to fill it up when I returned it.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, well, yeah,
man.
gas. I mean, Idaho, $3.20 is still pretty expensive, but nothing close to where we're at in Washington State. But
I think it was $2.30.
Two something, man. So yeah, if you're thinking of moving, fine. We'll miss you. I don't want you to, but reach out to our friend Wes Jones. He's been helping a lot of people who unfortunately are deciding to move out of state, or if you're just moving, to a different place too. He can help you with that. Sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com. He and his team have a fantastic marketing strategy to make sure that your listing stands out. And also he can help you in, especially if you've got a house that maybe could use a little touch-ups before it hits the market, just to make sure you get the best possible offers. Those are the homes that Wes specializes in. So sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. So I was thinking about this whole anti-Semitism thing, and there was this, and the media's coverage of it and everything, which is just an abomination. But there was actually a raid in Washington State that had me thinking, this is the only kind of anti-Semitism that the left acknowledges. It has to be this blatantly obvious for the left to call out anti-Semitism. You gotta have the, in this case, literally a picture of Hitler. Literally a framed picture of Hitler. And then you've got to have the Nazi flag, a few swastikas, and then the left will call it out. Because it's the right kind of anti-Semitism for them, right? It's the easy kind to call out. It's the white nationalists. And this is, easy for the left. Oh, this is a dunk. Oh, here's some white nationalists. Look at how violent they are and all these guns and stuff, which it is. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Just a few details on this before I talk about Boulder. So this was in Thurston County. They were executing a search warrant on white nationalists, extremists, as the sheriff's office characterized it. 35 firearms, grenade launchers, explosives seized. They had actually been, this is fascinating, actually. Sheriff's office, the Army Criminal Investigations Division had reached out to the sheriff's office for assistance executing this search warrant. It happened in the city of Lacey. And it was after a violent robbery, theft of military weaponry and armor. So they say the suspects identified in this case were actively involved in Nazi white nationalist efforts. So they'd stole military weaponry and armor. So thank God that they were able to figure out, and obviously I would say if you're stealing military weaponry, you probably have some sort of plot. And so it sounds like that was disrupted, and that's very good. But, I saw that, and the first thing I thought is, there's a case of anti-Semitism that the left will call out. That's how obvious it has to be. But if it's anti-Semitism that is violent and perpetrated by the left, it's like their minds explode. Oh my God, but they weren't flying a Nazi flag, so we don't know what to do, and it's our side, and we think, that what's happening in Gaza is bad, so we're going to find a million ways to excuse the violence. So, of course, by now you've all heard what happened in Boulder, Colorado. Absolutely horrible. A man named Mohammed Sabri Solomon, 45 years old, an Egyptian national, in the U.S. illegally, carried out this, what I guess I would characterize as a firebombing attack on peaceful protesters who are supporting Israel and calling for the release of hostages, the remaining hostages. And so he had kind of a makeshift I guess, flamethrower it's been characterized as and Molotov cocktails, literally lighting them on fire. Burning Jewish people peacefully assembled in the streets. I mean, this is, and he had a long history. When they look back at his Facebook, like he had a long history of this rhetoric, but again, in the country illegally, had come in under Biden, overstayed his visa. The media coverage of this was insane. So don't even get me started on CNN. So CNN had its talking head experts on the show. I'm not even going to play it because it's so predictable, where they're like, oh, we can't rush to judgment here. The FBI is rushing to judgment by calling it a terror attack. The guy was screaming about Zionists and screaming about Palestine while lighting people who were gathered to support Israel on fire. And CNN talking heads accused the FBI of jumping to conclusions about what the motive was. Again, if they had been flying, do you need it that obvious? You got to fly the swastika and you got to have an armband on with SS on it. And you got to be white, of course. You got to be white. And you got to be marching and giving Nazi salutes while you're firebombing. And then we can call it anti-Semitic terrorism. It's just nuts. There was a couple headlines that I just had to point out. One of them was the weirdest. It requires a little explanation, but there's this guy named Ken Dilanian. He's the NBC News Justice Intelligence correspondent. He tweets out, wrap your mind around this one. Worth noting that flamethrowers are legal and commercially available for sale. Elon Musk's company even sold some several years ago. What in the fresh does that have to do with anything? Literally somehow made a left-wing attack on Jewish people about Elon Musk. What is that? And then CNN, a man reportedly set people on fire in Boulder, Colorado, leaving multiple individuals injured, the city's police chief said, as people gathered for a, quote, peaceful pro-Israel demonstration. They put the word peaceful in quotes. What is wrong with them? This attack on Boulder's Pearl Street Mall in Colorado burns several people. It burns several people. Not a human, not a terrorist. The attack burned several people. What is this? I mean, you'd never see it. You'd never see it if it was, again, the traditional sort of, right-wing neo-Nazi out there hurting Jewish people. They just call it what it is. But they treat this so much differently. And then there's this whole wrinkle about the federal government rounding up this guy's family. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Maybe this should have been my subscriber poll for the day. But the State Department has confirmed that all visas for the Boulder terrorist attack suspect's family have been revoked. Get this headline from USA Today. Put aside how you might feel about that. Like, okay, you're also taking visas away from the family. We're just a couple days from this happening. People still in the hospital. Boulder suspect's daughter dreamed of studying medicine. Now she faces deportation. You have to be kidding me. Even if there's an argument to be made that, hey, if they were still, if their visas were still legal, the family members, can't be blamed for what your parents do, right? You can make that argument. I think that would be a legitimate argument to make. But here's USA Today. Picture of the terror suspect's daughter just smiling. Boulder suspect's daughter dreamed of studying medicine. Now she faces deportation. How about the people who were burned within an inch of their life? Can we focus on them at least for a couple more days before you weave the sad tales of the terror suspect who was in the country illegally's family? And I got to say, we kind of talked about this when they were letting in, and he originally came on an asylum claim. When they were letting in people, just willy-nilly, and you had Egyptian nationals and people from all over the world, Chinese nationals who would come in seeking asylum, and they'd grant them this initial sort of court hearing, and then they just release them into the interior of the country. And occasionally somebody would be caught who was on the terror watch list, and we would ask, and how many weren't caught that might be coming into the country with motivations to cause harm to Americans? I think this is only the tip of the iceberg. But also, him out there and what he was sharing on social media and the anti-Israel sentiment. His Facebook, frankly, and his posts didn't look too different from what we see many on the left in Seattle posting. They don't look too different. The rhetoric isn't that much different from what Elias Rodriguez was posting and writing about before he murdered two young people in cold blood in D.C. Now, I'm not saying you criminalize that speech, but this sentiment, he didn't have a quote unquote extremist sentiment in the sense that what he was saying isn't unusual for the left in the United States right now. And this is why it's so problematic, what's happening on college campuses and having these students who, I guess it's free speech to say that Elias Rodriguez is courageous and that he should be released. So yeah, I get it. I love free speech, but if your students saying that on a campus with Jewish students, that you believe that Elias Rodriguez was courageous for what he did and that he should be released, how is that fostering a safe environment on the college campus? Do you believe, and I had this debate over the weekend when I did that Cascade PBS event about free speech, if these were, Nicole, can you pull back up the UW student group Instagram post for me quick? Let's just say that you had white neo-Nazi sympathizing students at UW who celebrated blatantly and openly the murder of Jewish people. What do you think the response would be? Do you think that the left would be falling over itself to excuse it as free speech and saying, no, you shouldn't kick them off campus? Or do you think they would be like, they should be arrested for this and remove them from campus? The response would be totally different. Totally different. This is celebrating the murder of Jewish people. And it's been totally normalized. And if you don't think, I said this after DC, if you don't think what happened in DC can happen here, if you don't think what happened in Boulder can happen here, why not? We have people who are spewing on a daily basis the exact same rhetoric. They believe, he said, globalize the infantata. They believe that killing Jewish people is justified because of what's happening in Gaza. And they're saying it. They're saying it out in the open. So, I mean, are police looking into these people? Are police trying to track down who operates this account? Because they should probably have their eye on them. Because they're basically saying it's okay to kill Jewish people in cold blood. So I'm very worried. And then you have elected leaders, as we've said many, many times, in our state, who excuse it. They excuse it by not saying anything about it. They excuse it by not condemning it. In the same way they would condemn it if it was white neo-Nazis marching through the quad, flying a Nazi flag. This is no different. It's just happening on the left, and they couch it in this sympathy for Gaza. They're going to kill people. Bob Ferguson, they're going to kill people. Nick Brown, they're going to kill people. Bruce Harrell, they're going to kill people. You know this. Pramila Jayapal, they're going to kill people. Kshama Sawant, they're going to kill people. And all of you will bear accountability for it, as will the media, for downplaying it in the way that they have. Absolutely, absolutely insane.